Hello, this is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. You know, this video is about, you've heard about the Titanic. Well, this video is about the Titanic of the Pacific coast. And sometimes it takes a big accident to change the rules, especially when you're talking about international rules. Did you ever see that video I made in the Arizona playlist when those two big airliners crashed right over the Grand Canyon? That accident changed the rules about flying ever since. And similarly, the ship that went down off the British Columbia Pacific coast years ago changed the rule about shipping and the law of the sea. Come on, I'll tell you the story. The Canadian North, big country, wilderness and beauty, but also far away and cold in winter. Lots of tour ships go up the Pacific coast today. They travel in luxury and safety. Big ships and modern technology has made marine disasters a thing of the past. Big tourist ships dwarf the little communities. But it was not always that way. In the early days, they called the North Pacific shoreline the graveyard of the Pacific. In historic times, thousands perished in thousands of shipwrecks over the years. Even after the world-renowned Klondike Gold Rush, miners and their descendants like to take a break from the cold Canadian winters and sail south to warmer sunshine places. They were the first snowbirds, well-to-do people, business people, and community leaders from Dawson City in the Yukon. They were making their way south for the winter. The Klondike Gold Rush was long over, and Dawson City was now at last making somewhat of a comeback after the good times of the gold rush had declined. People from Dawson City left their community and headed south through where Whitehorse in the Yukon is at today. Those first snowbirds traveled upstream on the Yukon River from Dawson Creek to Whitehorse in a paddle wheeler like this one. These boats could navigate the shallow waters of the Yukon River. They then made their way the short distance from Whitehorse down to the coast at Skagway. And there they boarded the ship and headed through the Lynn Canal along the coast, and that is where they hit the Vanderbilt Reef. And it was roughly between Skagway and the capital city of Juneau. Just to get a little better oriented, let's do a quick comparison with that more famous disaster of passenger ship called the Titanic. The Titanic went down in 1910, 8 years before the Sophia went down in 1918. And the Titanic went down in the Atlantic Ocean, coming from Europe to the eastern coast of Canada, whereas the Sophia went down in the more remote and far-away Pacific region, North Pacific. And look at the year when they went down. The Titanic had much more attention because in 1918, it was the end of the First World War, and everyone was excited and focused on that. There wasn't that much going on in 1910, so when the Titanic went down, everybody knew about it. And look at the number of deaths. The Titanic was a much bigger ship. There were 1,500 people who died in the Titanic, but almost half of them survived. They were rescued. Compared to the Sophia, only 364 people died. And how many survived? No one survived the Sophia sinking. Here are some of the smarter people of Dawson City standing around. How do we know they're smarter? They all wear hats. The smarter people wear hats. Americans and Canadians alike partied and socialized the last night in Skagway. Then the next morning they boarded the luxury goods ship SS Sophia for points south. They were a couple of hours leaving Skagway. So darkness was coming, and the captain fired up that ship at full speed. As they headed south, they ran into bad weather. The winds came up, the rain came in. They entered an area of a blinding snowstorm. And they sounded the horn on the boat and then counted the number of seconds that the sound echoed back from the mountains to see how far, estimate how far they were from the shoreline. They knew about Vanderbilt Reef in the middle of the channel, but they probably weren't even thinking about it as they made their way through the storm. 4 hours later, in a blinding snowstorm and rough waters, they hit Vanderbilt Reef, which really was the mountaintop, a mountaintop submerged in the middle of the channel. This is a historic photo of the buoy on the part of Vanderhoof Reef. It was dark and the buoy had no light. One doomed passenger wrote this when the ship first hit the reef. 2 women fainted, and one of them got herself into a black evening dress and didn't worry about who saw her putting it on. Some of the men, too, kept life preserves on for an hour or so and seemed to think there was no chance for us. The ship was double-hulled, and there was no initial severe damage. The SOS quickly went out, and quickly 7 rescue ships were at the scene. This picture here is not the Sophia, but it's a similar ship hung up at another place another time. However, the Sophia was in a similar situation. The captain's decision was final. The wind and waves against the rocks were too risky to attempt putting people into lifeboats and getting them to the waiting rescue ships. They would wait for a calmer weather in the morning, but a sense of dread set in. I'll read you part of a man's last letter that they found written to his loved one. It reads, "My own dear sweetheart, I am writing this, dear girl, while the boat is in grave danger. We struck a rock last night, which threw many from their berths. Women rushed out in their night attire. Some were crying. The force of the waves are terrible, making awful noises on the side of the boat. I made my will this morning, leaving everything to you. The Eagle Lodge will take care of my remains." The seas calmed down overnight, but all the rescue ships saw in the morning was the topmast of the Sophia, sticking a meter or so out of the water. Huge ocean swells had lifted the ship loose from the rocks, and winds turned it 180 degrees. This is one of the last photographs of the SS Sophia. It was taken by a rescue ship before darkness set in. Overnight, the wind turned the ship anchored to the rocks, and the rocks worked like an auger or screw bit, grinding through the ship's bottom and letting the water rush in, causing the sinking of the doomed ship and all passengers. Final desperate wireless call went out from a passenger, and it said, quote, "For God's sake, hurry. The water is coming into my room." Later, divers found bodies in the ship. Other bodies washed ashore months later, hundreds of kilometers away. Time watches found on the victims stopped at the same time, which was 1750 on the metric clock, or 5:50 p.m. roughly 40 hours after the Sophia had hit the reef. Canada's own Titanic was the forgotten voyage. The disaster was overshadowed by the relief and joy of the ending of World War I. No victim was buried in the Yukon. I searched the Juneau Cemetery for grave sites, but they were grown over with vegetation and had long suffered neglect. I found only this one single plaque after kicking away the grass and debris. It was the end of an era. Dawson City never recovered. Today, it is more of a tourist curiosity than a vibrant community. The disaster changed a principle in international law of the sea. Prior to the disaster, the captain's decision was final. Afterwards, final decisions in disasters were made by the rescue team. And a final note, all legal actions against the ship owners, the Canadian Pacific, failed. It was another sad ending to a sad story. Like I said, unfortunately, sometimes it takes a big accident to change the law. If you want to see about that big airplane crash that happened right over the Grand Canyon that changed the rules about flying, you can find that in the playlist on my channel on Arizona. It's in that playlist. And until then, we're rolling on down the trail. Hit the subscribe button, and that'll tell you when we're putting more videos on the internet. Until then, so long for now. This is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. The best way to find all my videos is to do like it says on the bottom of the picture here. Number one, to start by Googling the little @ Don Barnett 5090. Click on my name first, and then hit the word playlists and scroll down. And you'll find the different playlists like the Arizona playlist and other ones as you scroll down.